and we have actually written a book chapter, which is going to be published with Trixie and Ange, with all the different chapters from the enabling educators. And it's all about, strategies of how to engage students online. But I thought, we thought before we get started, let's just all make sure we're all on the same page about what do we mean by online learning. So if you could go to menti.com and type in that number there, and there's a couple of questions there for you to fill out with just a word or so, just so that we can see what everybody understands by online learning.
Yeah, any words that come to mind. Yeah, don't
few minutes to fill that out. Just anything that comes into your mind. Yeah. Thank you. So it's interesting. We've got so many people from very different backgrounds as well, isn't it? And it'll be interesting to see, how many students you actually have online in your courses as well, and how much of the materials and resources are online.
Great. There are all sorts of different understandings, but a lot of the similar things of Suzi and I we started in Darwin. I know you said you went up to NAEEA in Darwin, and that was when we started the first gathering of ideas from those people that are engaging in this SIG at that NAEEA conference. And we've got them. We'll tell you a little bit more about where they're stored. But yeah, all of those ideas have certainly come up around what is online learning.
Well, I mean, the bold here, flexible, accessible. I mean, that the flexibility and the accessibility is certainly something that we will talk about, because that's obviously a key point about learning online. We've got some other words here about supportive and it's self-paced. And that little word there, isolated, is also something that comes up, quite a lot in the literature, that online learners can feel quite isolated. They really enjoy the flexibility and the accessibility, but they can feel quite isolated, especially if they don't really have the digital skills, to support themselves. All right, well, we'll move on to this idea of the sticky campus. So this came from reading this amazing article by Ajiwi and Gravett and O'Shea. And they talk about, how to generate a way for students to come on campus and to get connected and have those meaningful conversations about their learning on campus, right? Because a lot of students are not coming on campus. They're just doing their class and then disappearing and going off to work. So they're looking at ways to actually encourage people to stay, and hopefully that will have a positive impact on their learning. So we thought, what about online learning? What could possibly help students stick to their online learning? And Anne has got this beautiful bee wandering around there. Do you want to say something about the bee?
We came up with this idea of a buzzy bee. What is it that keeps students buzzing back to creating this sticky environment for them online, where they feel like they've engaged, where they feel like they've interacted, and they want to come back. So what is it that can create this, transfer this concept of a sticky campus environment? How can we create a sticky online environment? Thanks, Suzi. And these are all the kinds of things that you've talked about already when you went into the Menti there. These are the kinds of benefits that the literature tells us. That there is Paula Rowe, who came and presented for us at our SIG last year, one of them, and was fabulous and shared a lot about her strategies for human connection and the opportunity for students to, feel like they're connected to the university. So, being able to share stories and alleviate that imposter syndrome that they might be feeling. So creating an environment that helps them feel connected. Also, the benefits is the flexibility and the access, that students can, from all over, and they don't have those problems of driving and parking and distance and travel and so forth, the flexibility and the access to a convenient online learning environment. We know also that there's wonderful multimodal opportunities with all the fantastic learning design improvements that have been rapidly improving in the last few years. There's great opportunities where we can get students to annotate and engage and interact with multimodal resources in that online learning environment. And also the opportunity for students to really broaden their learning experience. They're not just sitting inside a physical classroom with the students maybe from that community or that environment, but there's a really diverse learning opportunity for them where they might be sitting in an online room with students from very diverse backgrounds nationally, geographically around the country, students of very different ages and backgrounds and so forth. So it's a really creates an opportunity to broaden that engagement experience too. Susie?
Yes, well, obviously there are benefits and then there are also some challenges. So, these are the ones that kind of stood out in the literature. And, this idea that, some of our enabling students, they might be really great with their phones, but not necessarily with their laptops and how to actually access all the materials and resources and so on online. They might not really have had much experience with Teams or Zoom or anything like that. They might also have technical constraints, especially in regional Australia, like where we are. We often have blackouts and cyclonic weather conditions and all sorts of things that it can impact actually being able to log on and get access to resources. And as you also, had in your Mentimeter, they can feel quite isolated and unsupported, and it can actually, if they're sitting at home by themselves and they don't reach out, it can really sort of exacerbate that imposter syndrome kind of feeling that they often have. And I think one of the most important things is that we have teachers or tutors who are actually trained, in how to teach online, that they're not just taking the on-campus materials and then just putting them online and expecting that to work, because we know it doesn't. It needs to be, carefully crafted for an online environment so that there's specific strategies to engage students and to make the content really accessible. So there's just a few things there, few ones. So this is our lovely stick, and we really thank Katrina, who's on this call, who actually designed that for us. And there is the acronym STICK. So I'm just wondering if anybody could possibly guess what any of those letters stand for. And to just come on the mic or type in the chat. This is not a trick question.
No.
Student,
Excellent.
Coulson says.
Coulson's got
Student,
it.
yes. And often we've actually put two words together. So we've got
Short
student.
phrase.
Oh, community would have been a good one. Thanks, Barbara. What do you think? We've got student. What do you think? Oh, we've got technology. Yes, could be. Kittens? No. Interactive. That would have been a great one.
Connected.
But it's not what we chose.
Involvement, yeah, all great, all
Curriculum.
relevant.
Yes,
Curriculum.
there is a big tick from Trixie. We feel like the curriculum is really central pretty much to everything, really. And that's comes down to, and we got the community, yes. Well, it generates the community. Any other guesses for the K? What that might be?
I think Trix has put knowledge in there. That's a good one too.
It
T.
is a very good one. And guess what? It's the right one as well. Kindness, that would be a great one. Yes.
Important too.
That.
Thanks, Kelly.
Any other ones?
Should we do the reveal?
We'll do the big reveal, yeah. So that we have cheated and put student connection together. And we talked about teachers and we talked about teacher presence, because it's about the presence of the teacher and the tone and the language and the way they approach our students and approach the curriculum. We've got institutional support, because without that, really, if you don't have the institutional support, none of this is going to work. When the technology comes down or the students can't get online or whatever it is, and the teacher training, of course. And the curriculum, is key to it all, underpins it all. And really, the knowledge is our roots here, because we need the knowledge about all of these things before we can really get started. So that's how we've started with our sticks. So the next one, we would like everybody to start having a think about, or sharing some strategies in any one of these areas that are either working well for you or where you've had some challenges. And what we did with our book chapter was that we did link all of these key elements to successful online learning, to growth mindset, because the growth mindset is key for our students, I think, to especially for our enabling students, to change from that fixed mindset about how things need to be or how they are, to being open to a new way of doing things. So are you up for a bit of a share, everybody? What strategies do you use to get students to connect with each other online? Do you want to just come on the mic or type in the chat? Whatever works for you. Or it could be teacher presence, institutional support, curriculum, or knowledge. Either, any of them.
I'm happy to give it a go.
Yeah, give it a go. Go.
Crack. So I'll include a few. So curriculum design, when I design my Articulate modules, of which there are a lot, I incorporate a lot of humor. I have a lot of dog gifs and memes and things like that.
Yeah.
And
they all relate to that?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I follow all the design principles of chunking and all that kind of thing, but I do, and I put a lot of interactiveness in there. So it's all, they have to stop and they have questions that they can answer. They have drag and drops, then they click the next one. It's got 5 dogs clapping, and it's really gamifying it to make it fun as well as informative.
I love that, Barbara. Thank you. We at Southern Cross, we used to have an online tutor, and he had a dog, and he always used to have the dog sitting on his lap, and all the students came just to see the dog and see what was going on with the dog each week. They all wanted to know how the dog was going. So yeah, the humour, definitely. So we've got a few things coming into the chat. Who else would like to come on? Thanks, Barbara. Anybody
I'm happy
else
to
like
say
to
a
come
few
on?
things,
Yeah.
Suzi, just because I got to head off soon.
Go ahead.
Just for us, we started pretty early with the external students and then moved to online. So it's always been an interest for me of how to engage with the students and get them to feel the same sense of connectedness. And I'll put a link to the paper that I did when I was doing my master's in the chat soon. So if in case you wanted to refer to it or have a read of it.
Thank you.
But we try, for us, it's also about looking at what's the latest tools that are available to include. So we have online classes each week for our online students. We also have what we call focus sessions, so that students don't see it as just another class where they can have a different perspective in how they engage. We're trialing the use of Teams in the unit this semester because we use Collaborate on LearnLine, and all we see is the text, and students, it's so doomsday, so you're just talking to students. So hopefully that's going to be something different. And also now looking at trialing, I trialed it last semester and this semester, more engagement with things like Padlet. So with Padlet, you give them the link, just like you've done with Mentimeter. So when you're in the classes, give them an opportunity to do things. They might not be necessarily open to talking as much. But when you say, click on this and do it, you just see the cursors just start moving everywhere and start working away, and they start, answering, and they just go for it. There's an activity that they should do. It's a lot more collaborative learning. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that we do. There's lots of others that others do within other units, but I won't hold up. But I'll put a link to my very first paper that I did with my master's, which was all about using digital tools and increasing the connectedness with students and the team.
Lovely. That'd be great, George. I think Padlet's great, and it's also a great way to introduce a unit, I think, of study, getting them to come up with whatever they see in their environment or whatever it is, and upload a video or poem or song or something, and then that sort of starts the lesson off. It gives them ownership a bit. Colleen, you've got something there about community learning. We'd love to hear about that. Are you able to come on the mic?
Yes, I can. So many years ago, actually, seems like a long time ago, I supported an online learning program which was about the diploma of e-learning. So it was in
Mm,
2007. And so we were a group community of people who were learning how to teach online.
mm,
And they were based around the country. And we, very early days, we set up both partnerships and peer. And I guess it's a different cohort because they were trying to teach and learn on and teach online. But the idea of having partnerships and small groups sort of just gave a bit of accountability for the community or the people, without making it a big pressure thing. So very simple activities that people could do together, could then share. So having a voice within that online community, I think, is really important.
mm, mhm.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Colleen.
Lisa, what about you? You've got a couple of things on here. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I really like Miro boards, so which are kind of similar to Padlet, but yeah, there's a few different sort of interactives and different options for activities. We also have one of our units is blended with some first year students. It's like a, understanding university unit. So they are able to work with others outside of the program and just almost have like a peer mentoring sort of model where the bachelor students are able to, shed some light on what it's like to be studying in a bachelor's program.
Sounds so interesting. So how does that work? Do the bachelor students get credit for doing that unit, or how does that,
Yes.
or is it, oh,
Yep.
they do.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
do the same assignments.
Yes, they do. Yeah. So we've added some additional scaffolding and support for our uni ready students just to
Oh,
support
wow.
them through that. Yeah.
So the first year students, they would benefit as well because they don't know all these things either, do they? They
That's
haven't
right.
learned learning
I
strategies
just
and
think
things like
I'm
that.
doing this unit. I'm like, I think every uni student should be doing it
Yeah,
because, yeah, it's a lot of like
yeah.
really just foundational skills.
A lot of people say that to us, that they don't have the culture capital either. And it's actually something that we've just got a paper we've put in as well about with my international colleagues, and it's one of the things that came out that they
Mhm.
they don't have the culture capital,
No,
either.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, this
absolutely.
assumption that they would all know better. No, they don't.
Yeah, so I've got one student who's in a postgrad, like wanting to go into postgraduate, and he's like, I'm here just to really understand the
How to
layout of the
learn.
university,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we might move on to what we found because they're all things that we've definitely found too. Thanks, Liz. So look, these are in the book chapter that we've written, and we've just tried to make it a little bit more interesting rather than just a list of things. So we've sort of divided up 4 main points for each of the stick items, if you like. So the student connection one, we've got facilitate personal connection, real-time collaboration, that online community idea that you're talking about, and building peer relations. And then for each of those, we've got some suggested activities that you could do. So I know that there's a lot on the page there, but maybe, I don't know, do you want to have a look and just see if there's anything on there that you want to talk about or ask questions about?
Mindful that these have all been shared through colleagues like yourselves over the last couple of years through this online learning SIG. And once they're published, though, the nice thing is we're going to put them as a dynamic toolbox on the NAEEA website. So it's a growing toolbox. This is obviously just a start of ideas that we as educators
Mm.
can dig into. Yeah. Any comments?
Because there's so much that's changing, isn't it? Like really, it's just constantly um
Or new tools being available and any comments around student connection? all of the things that we're doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That relational pedagogy of building those connections, building those relationships, and establishing that community like we would in a real classroom environment, but trying to get that sticky environment online where students want to come back to next week's session, feeling like they're getting something valuable, feeling like they're making student connections with their peers and with the teacher. So that's what that first element is about.
Does anybody think connection isn't important?
Hey, Susie, I think out of everything, connection is probably the most important when it comes to online, building those relationships with them. I know some students don't mind hiding behind the screen. Some may not want that the relationship or that connection, but really a majority, I think, they need to be connected to feel that they're a part of something bigger and not just this individual person sitting behind a screen. So I think it's probably number one, how do we connect our students and make them feel that they are valued and seen and a part of a much bigger community?
Look, I would agree, and I think the connection really helps with focus and motivation. I think, some of them might feel like at the beginning, oh, well, I can just do all this by myself and just work through the resources by myself. But sooner or later, they realize that actually, they're going to learn so much more if they do connect. I mean, some students are strategic. They're just there just to get through and they just want to get a pass. It's true. But I think it's so much more of a richer experience if they do connect. Barbara, go ahead.
I totally agree. And I think it's because we've lost the social interaction that we used to have back at the universities when, oh my goodness, back in the day when you used to go to the uni bar to listen to the bands play and everybody would come together and you retain those friendships that you've had all those years because you interacted with one another. And in the age of digitization and AI, we've lost that. And so I think you're right, this student connection is super important. And as you said, a lot of people do want to hide behind a screen, but sometimes you have to show them that social interaction is really important for learning. I put together, not for my onlines, I put together student peer study groups. I make them interact with each other and introduce them to each other so that they can pair off and have study groups. And that is the biggest part, is having somebody else, another student, hold you accountable for your studying. So this is super important and probably something I should have put more thought into, and I haven't. So I appreciate seeing this.
Yeah.
Where am I listening to the audio from? Is that from your computer, from your device?
Oh, is there an echo? Is there? Sorry.
No. No echo. Me.
Angel, is there?
Johanna?
Colleen, in the chat there, Colleen, Katrina, Kaylee make some excellent points around our next one. Or is there anything around student
Johanna's got
connection
her
anyone would
hand
like
up.
to?
Yeah.
Who else has?
Johanna? Yeah.
Go,
Yeah.
Johanna.
I'm just thinking, looking at that establish an online community, use emojis and things like that. We had recently had a conversation where we said like the use of emojis can be a bit tricky because differences in generations. So if you, for example, if I use the thumbs up, I'm in agreement and I'm in support. But in younger generations, that's often like dismissive or like passive aggressive. So I think also kind of like just being mindful how you use things, like it's also, different generations and how we understand things.
So getting those clear expectations. And I think, with the camera off thing, it's often discussed, isn't it? Like if we can't have the camera on, it's difficult to connect. But I mean, looking at our meeting today, we've got several people with their cameras off, and there could be all sorts of reasons why the camera's off, couldn't it? I mean, you
And the
could be having a
literature.
lunch, you could be, driving somewhere, or
Correct. Yeah.
there could be all sorts of reasons, not that you're not engaged. So, if I asked any of these people with their cameras off, Darren, are you there? Susan, Kaylee,
I'm
sure
eating lunch. Sorry.
You're eating lunch, you see? So there's a good reason why you've got your camera off. So, and George,
And a lot of the lit says now that actually having the fact that you've turned up shows that you're
It's
engaged,
engaged.
right? Whether you've got your camera on or not, the fact that if you turned up at 1 o'clock on a Friday, whenever it said that meeting or that class was going to be on, you've already got that student wanting to engage and interact. So, not worrying so much about whether their visuals there or not. Beautiful. Shall we move on, Suze, to the next?
We can move on. Yeah.
I think Kaylee and Katrine put some lovely comments in the chat that linked to our presence, the importance of that. So that's the second element of our STIC framework, is that teacher presence. What do we bring to the online room that makes the students want to come back, that makes them want to stick around? Kaylee said she spent 10 minutes in her class the other day with her puppy dog jumping around on the computer and so forth, and how that interfered with the class, but how it was all fantastic, a great way for the students to connect and see that she's a real person, and make that sort of presence and connection with them. It shows showing we care and building trust, personalizing the learning experience. Those students would go away and say, oh, my lecturer at Griffith, she had this great puppy, blah, 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 blah. They probably talked so much about that lecture, when they left, as opposed to other things. So, personalizing that space, being engaging, having that, that motivation that the students want to learn and are taking something valuable away from our classes, and establishing those roles. Johanna, you made a good point there before as well. Just like we would in the classroom, having some expectations around interactions and what's a positive interaction, what may not be, might be a less appropriate interaction. Establishing those rules in the online learning environment as well is really good. Any comments around that particular element?
I think the personalizing thing, I think it's so, I think with the online environment, the use of our voice is really important. I mean, in the classroom, you can move around the classroom and you can, eye contact somebody and so on. But I think on the online, it's about, really using your voice and having that really friendly tone as well. And I think, using people's names is always great as well, because they think, oh, wow, she knows my name, or using my name personalizes the environment. Barbara, you got your hand up?
I don't want to feel like I'm monopolizing this. I'm sorry.
No, you absolutely. We love having your ideas. Thank you.
I just finished a 2-hour online lecture for somebody else that was short this week, and I usually teach hybrid. And I found it really confronting. And if it is for me, what is it like for my students? I felt like I was talking to a void. When I'm sitting in one of my lecture theatres, I can see them all, as you said, eye to eye, and I can ask a question and I can pointedly look at them and make them squirm and answer me. But I asked a question and it was dead silent, and I had to say, can everybody give me the thumbs up? I just want to make sure that not everybody's fallen asleep. And then I got a couple of smiley faces and a couple of thumbs up, and that made me feel connected. Yeah. So I'm sure they're feeling as isolated as I'm feeling when I'm giving an online lecture. So yeah, all those things that you've got there, that making it fun, using people's names without calling them out and making them feel like they've been picked on. But yeah, I found it quite confronting.
I think that whole thing, talking into a black void is something that we've all experienced. And I think some of the next ones coming up, maybe not the institutional support so much, but the curriculum is where we've got some really good ideas of how to avoid that situation, really. And George was talking about the Padlet, and I think that's a really good way to start the class, because then they're talking about something that they've already uploaded, and it's not something that they've got to think about too much. I think anything that's about their own personal experience makes it easier for them to say something. Johanna's got a hand up. Maybe we could move on to the next one as well.
Yeah, I just quickly with the teacher presence, I'm assuming we are talking about like emails as well. So if a student is emailing, how to respond in a timely manner and in that supportive tone. So yeah, not just in the teaching or in the content, but also kind of like the more offline environment or after us. Yes. Yeah.
And on the discussion board as well. Yeah. All of those places. Yeah. I mean, the institutional support is kind of what holds it all together, isn't it? Without that, you're going to be in trouble, really, if we don't have access to the right different platforms, and we need the professional development to make sure we're current and up to date with all the different tools that are available. And also we need institutional support to make sure our teachers are properly trained, not only in the teaching, but things like online marking as well, that they know how to get onto the marking and give appropriate feedback and so on. So that's all really important, I think, with the technology. I mean, we had that at the beginning of this meeting, didn't we? That, the best laid plans and half of us can't get into the class, so you have to have some contingency plans, I think. Any comments on that one? Or should we move on to the most interesting one?
No comments, okay. Curriculum design. One of the biggest. You go, Suze.
All right. Okay. Well, look, I think this one is the key really to it all, because this is the one, where you are going to really help people connect and feel like they're important and valued and that there's something useful to come, because there's got to be a rationale, I think, as well, to come online, spend that time to come online and make an effort and tune in. I think for some of our students, some of the people that I've spoken to anyway, they often say that the online environment is less intimidating than being in a physical classroom, because they can ask questions in the chat, they can give answers in the chat. Whereas in the classroom, they've almost, they feel like they're back at school and they've got to put their hand up and they're worried about looking stupid, so in some ways it's less intimidating in the online environment. Once you set up, I think those clear expectations that we were talking about before, they're really important. And I think getting them to do something really simple at the start, things like, if you have a slide with, say, 3 points on it, or, asking them to type in the chat a number. They don't know what the number, say numbers 1 to 10. And you all type in, so, and then the next slide has got, say, 10 points on it. And then all those people who are typed in number 1, they can respond to that question, or, go into a breakout room for that one. And just sort of those kind of really simple things that don't require much on their part, but they're doing something, as George was saying. So look, there's a lot of different things on there. And, there's all the ideas of Kahoot, and there's Mentimeter, and there's quizzes and polls and things like that they can do, and simulations and breakout rooms, and, all sorts of ways to get them to just do something online together. Yeah. So are there any of these ones that you have used yourself and been really successful? Is there one that you can pick out and go, yeah, that actually works really well for me in the classroom? We'd love to hear from you.
I really don't want to monopolize this.
It's okay. Keep going.
So I have a podcast. It's relatively new, and it's too long. I won't go into the explanation of it. But my students, I get so much feedback from that, because I have other students asking questions of the people, the visitors, the guests that I have on the podcast, and they hear their names on there, and they absolutely love it. They feel like they're involved even if they're not there. And they all discuss it. They all sit back and have a discussion on. I have a team site that's set aside specifically for it. They all put their questions into the team site so that they can hear their questions being used on the podcast. It's pretty cool.
Does that also, Barbara, does that timestamp it? Is there a transcript with that as well then, so students can easily find the key information they're looking for afterwards? I wonder, because in the literature it talks about when we have video recordings, and I know Colleen's asked a question there about how do you sort of that synchronous and asynchronous learning environment. One of the strategies talked about with recordings is, when we make them available for students, is actually giving timestamps to them. So saying, at 12 minutes, there'll be this important information. And then at, 28 minutes, there's such and such information. So that way the asynchronous students can also be, having some more interactions with those recordings as well. And of course, easy ways to now pause videos, insert consolidation of learning, insert questions and answers for the students so they can interact as well.
That's really interesting. I'm really glad you said that. We haven't introduced that yet, but now that you said it, we're learning in the whole podcast realm. It's a whole new world.
So putting a transcript with it or something, Barbara, or
we already have that, so we release
okay.
it as so it's on Apple Music and YouTube and Spotify, whatever. But we release it as an audiogram, so that transcripts play across the front of my podcast cover, so that anybody that's hard of hearing can actually read it at the same time. Which we found was really important, but there was the ability to put timestamps in, and until you just said that, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah,
great idea.
Students have said that that's really helpful, obviously, in that time-poor learning environment, that they can go through to find the key information quickly. Yeah, nice.
And then giving them something to do. I think that's the other thing, and maybe directing them to the discussion board or Teams, and they have to do something, because I don't know about you, but when I'm doing something, it sinks in a lot more, and I can, see what I don't understand much quicker than just listening. Yeah, John Biggs. So what the student does. All right, so we'll move on to the last one, which is the knowledge, and I think that is really, for me, one of the key ones is really to know our students and to find out something about them. And I think, in our curriculum at Southern Cross, we always start with something personal about our students. And in our very first unit, which is our core unit, we get them to talk about an artifact that's meaningful to them about their learning journey. And that really opens up the door, to finding out more about them as a person and who they are and how they see themselves. And the teacher shares an artifact as well. So it's a fun way to get people talking, I think, and for people who could be shy about talking about themselves, talking about the artifact, when it's that you've got that little bit of a distance from yourself, you're not talking about yourself, you're talking about the artifact, that can really help. That's what I've understood anyway. So is there anything there that stands out to people on this one? How do you get to know your students, for example? I'd love to hear how you get to know them. What do you do to get to know your students?
Something that's a little bit different and well, not different, I'm sure you all do it, ties in almost with the previous slide, is leaving the whole class. Obviously, this doesn't work if you've got hundreds of students, but even 30 or so, is you've done various different levels of workshopping, and you're down to the sort of the wire, and you kind of switch off your camera, switch off your mic, sort of disappear in effect, and leave them to maybe come to a final conclusion or decide on the final top 3 points or something like that, and they actually forget. They know you're there, but they forget. And so you then so they do their job, and then you leave them for a few more minutes, and you get to learn different things about people. But it's also nice because they're in charge. If you're in this frame, they look to you to facilitate, of course. So if you're not there, even though they know you're there, they somehow forget, which actually works really nicely and gives you a whole different insight into the group, I think, which you can't do all the time, but is nice to slip in now and then, I think.
Has anybody done like a starter wrapper idea? Has anybody heard of that idea? No. It's like when I used to get 2 students to actually start the tutorial with something that they, want to talk about the topic. And, I'd give them some guidance first up. And then we'd ask for 2 students at the end to wrap up the 3 main points or a question that they still have about what we've been talking about. And then those points, the wrapping up points, we'd use those in the next tutorial to start the tutorial off and say, remember, Ashley talked about these were the 3 points that they came up with. And then just, divvying up the people in the group so everybody got a chance. And, people said to me, aren't they nervous about doing all this? And I go, Well, no, actually, quite the contrary. They'd be so proud. They'd go, "Oh, Susie's chosen me to start the tutorial this week." It was kind of like they saw it as a privilege, actually. And it could be about anything that sort of interested them about what we were doing. So there'd be sort of different topics, I suppose. Yeah, Johanna.
I have a question. AI agents, how and where does that fit into with the creating a sticky environment for students? Yeah, because with the technology, like there's so many different things you can do, but that might distract from that teacher presence, or is that part of the teacher presence? Like, how does that fit in?
Well, I've got an answer, but I'd love to hear from everybody else first. Anybody's got some answers there?
Can I say something else?
Go ahead.
I think with AI, we're asking students, or certainly we are at this uni, to be transparent about their use, to be ethical, and to tell us what they used it for and how they used it and why they used it if they're permitted to. So for me, it's about me telling them how I am using it in their classes, in their marking, in their assessments, for example, wherever I'm using it, to build that relationship. But it's one thing to demand they tell us what they're doing. We should say what we're doing. If we're using a bot in one course I work in, a bot for marking, for example, with human interaction, of course, but just being honest about everything that you use. Slides that are created by Claude, tell them, because that's what we're asking for.
Get them to critique them.
Yeah.
Anybody else using Gen AI online? So Kelly's saying providing AI agents to students with support. Yeah. Well, I would agree with what you got there, Kelly. I think the Gen AI is definitely, it doesn't replace thinking. That's really the main thing. But I think it is really a tool to support their learning. And, there's some wonderful things that you can use Gen AI for that really help with their learning, key concepts, and, to give them feedback and to help them feel that they're not alone, as well. If they're feeling isolated, they can get some feedback from Gen AI.
And I think as long as there's practical and ethical guidelines for what's permissible for students to use, then it's unavoidable that we as educators and students are using it to enhance learning. So it's certainly part of the learning landscape these days, isn't it? It's just giving them that clarity of guidance around what is allowable.
So I'm talking more about using an agent. So, for example, they can ask questions for assessment questions that the AI agent respond to. So not guiding them to use it for a specific thing, just like you can ask questions and it gives you answers on when is the assessment due, how many words, where do I submit my assessment. So instead of they posting, say, for example, in a discussion board or emailing us, the AI bot or agent is responding.
Yes, right. Yes. Does anyone have those in their universities? We're piloting one throughout CQ University at the moment that's specifically for students. I think Darren's put a note in there. We're calling it Birdie, CQU Birdie. It's embedded across some student platforms. Any other unis got one?
We have LearnWise at the moment in Griffith that we're just rolling out as a pilot. Plus, we also have Top that we've signed on with the Uni of Sydney.
Look, we've got just a couple of minutes left, and we would like to thank you all very much for your engagement, participation. And we are looking for some other people who would like to lead this group, and we also would love to get some people interested in sharing their practice in some presentations. So if you can contact Anne, that would be great. And Anne has got her email on the screen there. So anybody who's interested in leading the SIG, that would be amazing. Anne is keen to co-lead but not lead it because she's got her PhD to finish. and I am leaving as my role at the moment next Friday, so I won't be here for a while. I'm doing a reset, and then I will be looking for another role in Sydney. So yeah, so thank you so much, Anne, for being such an amazing co-lead with me. We've had a really fantastic time learning all kinds of different strategies and trialing them and hearing from a whole range of different people. So thank you.
Thank you, Suzi. Yeah, if you can reach out to me if you'd really like to. Suzi and I have had a lovely time leading cross-institutional collaboration. It's a really, as you know, a dynamic space. And if it's something that you're really passionate about and continuing to grow this cross-institutional collaboration, as I said, this online toolkit will be putting something up as part of the NAEEA website refresh. So what comes out in the book chapter obviously is just going to be static, but we want to continue to build on that collaboration and sharing of those ideas. And I want to wish Suzi all of the very best. She's about to, when she finishes after next Friday in her reset, thank her very much or wish her well with all her adventures ahead as she's off to multiple countries to have a lovely adventure. So is there anything else that anyone would like to share as part of today and coming along today? Any questions anyone would like to ask before we finish off?
I've got a question.
Chris.
So a lot of what we've talked about today is about synchronous classes. So if you get a fraction of your students actually attending synchronous classes, how do you engage online students? Because
it's a great question, isn't it?
What kinds of things are people doing at their institutes? Thanks, Chris.
So one thing that I can just mention that we are starting to do is using online booking systems, because it's one thing to try and get students to come to one place at one time. We just find that impossible. That's impossible with online cohorts. So we're using an online booking system to have